Hi friends, I hope you're doing well. If you're new to this channel, welcome, and if you're not new, welcome back. In the last video, we made a painting based off of a study, and when we came to a stopping point last time, I was in no way happy with how it was turning out. I walked away from it for a while, and when I came back to it with fresh eyes, I got some good ideas to get this thing turned around. But before we get started, go ahead and like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell. But most importantly, share it with someone who you think might benefit from these fundamentals. Go ahead and leave a comment below, and I'd be happy to hear from you. I'm Kendall Stump, and welcome to the Stump Project. Okay, all right, let's get started. Let's see if we can turn this thing around. This is not at all exactly what I was hoping for when we put this thing together, and maybe it's just because it's just not my style. I generally don't plan things. That's not to say that you shouldn't. This could work out really, really well for you. So I'm going to do to this what I would normally do to some of my paintings. I want to push this back a little bit. I want to see more depth. I feel like I'm at the top of a hill and everything just kind of stops right here. I want to see what's going on a little bit past that. So again, with the idea of dividing our canvas into thirds, so we would have a line through here and a line through here, I want to use this as my horizon line right there. So I'm going to push a little bit of this landscape back a little bit here, and we'll show a little bit more on the horizon, and push. And then this is another area that I'm having some problems with. Everything feels very, very, very flat, very crushed. So I want to try to kind of bring some of either these things forward. Yeah, I want to bring these things forward. So we'll attack that. We're going to be using some glazing techniques. Let's just jump into the colors here, and I'll kind of tell you what I've got. So here's some cadmium yellow. We're going to use that along with some of the titanium white for some highlights. Yellow ochre, Van Dyke brown, sap green, and like I said, titanium white. Right here I've got a little bit of residue of liquid. This stuff right here, this stuff, it tends to speed up the drying time of your paint. So what I did here on my canvas is I gave the entire canvas a really thin coat of liquid. I found that I prefer to do it directly on the canvas versus on the palette, because it means I don't have to mix it on the palette and worry that my paint has a uniform mixture of liquid. I had to keep it on here just to make sure that this is the exact amount that I have. Now, I do have some left over on my palette, and I am going to mix it up in there just because I don't want to be wasteful. But for the most part, I just try to do it on my canvas, and that it works for me. So the first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to start tinting this a little bit. Now, like I said, I'm going to have, well, let's draw it in a little bit just so that we get a better idea of what's going on. So a third of the canvas is probably about right here. I'm going to put in a horizon right here. Maybe have it break through the trees a little bit. And with this technique, use a little bit of linseed oil, odorless mineral spirits to act as a thinner, and you can wipe this stuff off, and it's not going to hurt your painting. So that's where I kind of want the horizon to be. So as we go back, and we'll put some clouds in here along the horizon, kind of bubble it up. But up in here, I want to use yellow ochre. That's the main color that I used for the background before. So I'm going to put some yellow ochre up in here. I know it looks, and you can see, first of all, you can see that because I've diluted it with the odorless mineral spirits and the linseed oil that is fairly transparent. And that's good, because I'm going to wipe some of this stuff off. And I just want like a residue left over. And you can paint right over top of what you've got there. And it's going to come, and the values are going to come through. It's like I've told you before. If you get your values right, then you're in good shape. Then it doesn't really matter what color you put on top of it. It's going to look correct. And you just take a paper towel and you just start working in, wiping off what you don't want. Eventually you get, it's very easy to get paint on your, or residue on your towel, and if you don't change your towel or find a clean spot, you're just ultimately transplanting paint at that point. And maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you can use that paint to come down to other areas to transplant a little bit of color. But right now we're just kind of working on, when you put a glaze on, we're working on blending and tinting. You don't want to see glops of paint. You don't necessarily want to see a one big uniform color. You don't want to see brush strokes. We're just looking for tonal value. Now again, I'm working on the sky and the horizon, and I want to put some, we got the color, so I've darkened up the sky a little bit, and I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to take my fan brush and put in some paint on my fan brush here. And then right here, we'll decide how we want the clouds to be. We keep them light and fluffy and right on the horizon. Bring it right down to that line that I've got there. You can have them coming in here if you like. Have some of those clouds peeking through over here. Wherever you want them. But I want them low. I want them low on the horizon. This down here is just going to be all snow and trees. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? We've talked many times, as we put in distance, we want to convey distance. As things move off into the distance, they tend to take on the color of the environment. So I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow ochre, a little bit of my titanium white, and this is where I want my horizon to be. This is where the land is going to be. So I'm just going to start putting in a little bit of color here, something for me to mix into. Wipe off your fan brush, and I'm just going to fluff these clouds. You've seen me do this with a larger brush before, and I just want to fluff these. I want to make them look like clouds. And some of this stuff we want to keep behind the clouds, so just wipe it off. Just wipe it off. And some of the stuff we're going to we'll get into a little bit later anyway, and paint over, so we won't be. I'm not too worried about some of this stuff here. As long as we have a nice horizon back there, I think we're in good shape. Now I'm going to start working on the far away tree line. So in order to do that, I'm going to go into my yellow ochre, just the tiniest smidge of Van Dyke brown, and I'm going to use this liquid and some of this odorless mineral spirits to kind of thin this out just a little bit. I want it more like a sludge than anything else. So it's not a whole lot. We're not mixing a whole lot on the palette because we're not painting like an entire painting with this, so I don't want to waste a lot. But I'm just using, it's like about a 1.5 inch brush. This is a cheap hardware brush, and it might be time for me to get some more. But these are great for adding texture, especially around the tree line. I don't know if you can see the bristles. Look how broken up those are. So when I put it onto the canvas like this, kind of push up a little bit, it's going to give me some really nice trees way off in the distance. So just put it on there, just push up just a little bit. Don't worry about the stuff below. We're worrying about the upper edge. And just rub it into the canvas just a little bit. You want it to mix with the paint that's already there. You want to get the hint of treetops and things that are happening way off in the distance. And not too concerned about this over here. This will get cleaned up and painted over, that sort of thing. So there's that. So now we can start putting in the lay of the land. So we're using perspective, and that's a video that we're going to be talking about before too long, is perspective. There's one perspective, and we'll get into that, like I said, in another video, but there's different points of perspective. There's no first, second, and third point. But this, what we're really conveying here, this is going to be like, no, this is the single point perspective. So you just like decide on what your vanishing point is, and then like all roads lead to Rome kind of thing. But the main thing that we're going to be worrying about is the unit of measure between point A and point B. So in other words, imagine your canvas has a grid, all equal size squares, and you take that grid and you tilt it away from you like this, right? So this grid with the equal spacing, when you tilt it away from you, this stuff here at the farthest end, it starts to look smaller and skinnier when you're looking at it. So keep that in mind as you're putting in the landscape that's furthest away. The stuff that's up here closer is going to have a much broader, a much wider look to it than the stuff that's way in the distance. So we're just going to keep that in mind. Also, as things move off into the distance, we're going to lose contrast. We're going to lose the ability to see the individual twigs and things that stick up out of the snow. It's going to look more just like splotches of color. So just going to keep those things in mind. So you're putting these things on, and obviously it's much easier to just paint over things, and then you just come back with a towel and just wipe things off. Keep what you like, get rid of what you don't. And if you paint over something that you decide you really wanted to keep, we can always come back in and repaint it. It's not that big of a deal. These aren't monumental decisions here. You know, like Bob said, happy accidents. So maybe you just paint over something and you're like, wow, I really like that a whole lot better than the way that it was. I didn't intend it to be, but it did. It worked out that way. So that's awesome. I take some more of my titanium white. Again, this is a snow scene. And this is just a flat. This is just a number 7 from the Eclipse collection from Rosemary & Co. It's a long flat. Nothing really special about it. Good quality brushes. You don't have to use these quality brushes. You can use any for this kind of thing. This is just far away detail. I like to put things in behind other things to give the idea that of that distance, help it with that illusion of distance. If you're trying to take things away, we were just using a paper towel, but if you rinse your brush off in some odorless mineral spirits, and then just use your brush and just wipe away, it works just as well, and in some cases, it gives you better control. Take a couple swipes, wipe your brush off, although otherwise you're just transplanting paint. And again, maybe that's exactly what you want to do. I use these brushes sometimes. They're from Artist Loft. You can get them at Michael's or any kind of box art supply store. They're really cheap brushes, but again, they're really good for texture. So you can use these and put in grassy tufts the same way as you did the trees. Just push it up against the canvas and just kind of scrub it in. Let's mix it in with the paint that's already there. You may have to wipe it off periodically because you're going to pick up paint. And this is just going to give us some texture, some grassy feels. Soften the landscape in some places that may need it. Remember, the further back you go, you're probably going to be seeing less and less and less of that. Like I said, we use the paper towel, but you can use a brush like this. Just wipe it off. Now we're going to try and connect these two areas. As we came here in the front, I think we used, what did we use? I think we used actually raw umber. Don't need too much. And my dirty brush that had the yellow ochre in it, I'm just going to dip it right into that raw umber. And we're going to apply some texture just like this. And the same way that we did the trees, just a little bit more exaggerated. It's going to flick it just a little bit more. We can start to see some of the strands of grass and things kind of trying to edge up here. We're not covering up this entire area. We want to leave some room for some white. We're going to put some snow, some additional snow in there. And mix them with that, and then we'll lift some more, and we probably have some more foliage going on over here. And then as we come forward, just make this a little bit more homogeneous. And then we'll work to get it darker as we come forward. We'll dip into the Van Dyke brown a little bit. This is a flick like this. And you're using the brush to give you texture. And darken some areas up, especially along the edges. We'll darken those. And obviously some of the background color go ahead and shine through, which is fine and gives us a little bit of that, a little bit of depth that we would be looking for. Okay, now let's, we're going to add some titanium white to this, kind of in between where we put the other articles, the other things, the tufts of grass. I'm also going up underneath where I put those in and kind of flatten those out a little bit, so it doesn't. So some of the stuff that's coming up down below it, we can flatten those out, make it look like they're sitting on the ground. Just let it scrub in and mix with that color. Let it act like shadow. Then I'm going to wipe off my brush and we'll mix them just a little bit. We'll just give it some of that flick. And then I'll wipe off my brush. Just mix it right on the canvas. You're not pushing really hard. You just lightly just doing this. Use the corner of your brush. And just lightly push up the paint that you put on there, letting it mix. And push strands up. Let the individual bristles just push things up in there. Again, you're just looking for texture. That's all that you're doing. We can go back into the raw umber if you feel that it's too striated. And just get a little bit more on your brush and just work it in just a little bit, just to kind of give you some more of those tufts of grass. You don't want it to necessarily look like wisps of mist. I mean, you could. Maybe that's what you want, and that's good. Different painters, different tonalist painters use this or a similar technique to put in snow. It's really cool. George Ennis did for sure, very successfully. Some other things that you can do is maybe more of a dry brush, where you get some paint on your brush and just wipe it off. So all you have left is a residue, and then just use the side of your brush and just scrub it on the canvas a little bit. And again, it's just, you're just going for texture and a little bit of value and not much detail, but it adds to the overall impression of what you're trying to accomplish. Again, it's not all about every little strand of grass. It's not about that. It's about the impression that you are giving the viewer. I'm not too excited about this tree here. I kind of want to make it bigger. But we're almost to a good point. I think I think you can see where this has already made a big difference. And before I call it absolute done, I may just go in on my own and not video it, but just continue to piddle with it until it's something that I'm happy with. So right now I'm going into my Van Dyke brown, my sap green. I'm using all that I put on the canvas. I'm using all that I put on my palette, and I'm loading the brush. Okay, you see this, the curvature that I have on my brush. I'm putting it on my palette and I'm pulling it in one direction, and I'm just pulling the paint in one direction as I load it, and then I take that and I flip it upside down. I want that curvature at the top, and then I want to make this tree here, bigger, and I want it on a third, so I want the trunk to be over here, so I need to make this area right in here, my tree. So I'm going to start and just push up. Like that. And I'm probably going to need to add more paint. And I'm just treating this. I want this. I am going to add more paint. I want to add more paint right now. And I'm going to, you see the really nice texture that you can get. It looks a bit more, I don't know, detailed than the way that I did some of these other trees. I like this look a little bit better, I think. Does that mean you can go through and redo those trees as well? Sure, you can. But I'm letting some of that stuff in the background show through. Just let it peek through every now and again. But I want the dark on first, and I think that's the takeaway here. Just getting whiter as I come down. Come all the way down here, and you see I'm turning my brush a little bit, changing the direction of the branches as it comes down. And then we'll just bring some of this texture up, this dark texture up and over here to kind of maybe push that other tree back just a little bit. And we can do the same thing here on this other side, maybe start and if you, as you apply paint, if you go slow, you'll apply less and less. I'm sorry, I had to scratch that. If you go slow, you'll apply more and more. If you go fast, you'll apply less and less. So like if I do something like this, you apply less paint than if you just take it slow, and you'll drop more and thicker paint. And we'll apply some of this down here. This is some dark color. Again, I'm just doing picked up some white paint on my brush, but that's fine. I'm just doing a quick motion like this. I want the bristles to leave, to do texture on the canvas. Just some snow stuff. Again, let's take our brush. Use the bristles and just push up some twigs and flatten it out just by going side to side. Just going to create that shadow. And then down here, we've got some pretty thick paint. And you've seen me do this trick before if you've watched any of my videos. I'm going to twist this into a nice tight taper, like this. And I'm going to aggressively just whip the canvas right over those dark spots. And what that's going to do is going to put texture in there, just random grass-like texture. Like that. It just brings it a lot of detail forward, closer to the viewer. It's right off the edge of the canvas. Now I want to add a little bit of the highlight to that, to those trees right there. So I'm going to go into my cadmium yellow, a little bit of the yellow ochre, some of the, a little bit of everything. I mean, I just want to lighten up the value that's there. The titanium white. And in the same fashion, not nearly as heavy, pulling in one direction on the palette. You can see one edge of my brush is loaded. I don't have nearly as much of a dog ear, but that's fine. And then I'm just going to lightly touch. Just lightly touch. Now, there's another way. That's more of the Bob Ross style of doing things. You can also take a paper towel and just crumple up like that, and just dab. And so you remove some paint. Well, the paint that you removed up there, leaving the canvas show through. Obviously, this works better if you have a lighter canvas underneath it. We were painting on top of some other stuff, so this may not work as well. That's why I wanted to show it to you, just so that you knew. It does work, but in this case, I think we have to use the paint. We have to use the paint because the canvas that we would normally want to show through isn't going to show through. because there's stuff that's already there. Now, be mindful of your lighting. So as you can see, I'm applying it to one side first. And then, now you've gotten paint that's coming off of your brush, you can lightly start going over the middle section. And that's mixing with the wet paint that's on your canvas. And then you can work your way over a little bit more if you want to, lightly, just ever so lightly. Because you want the side that's away from the light source, but kind of declaring this area right here as the light would be coming in through the forest as the light source. You want this side to be darker than this side here. So, and just let it just break naturally across there. Then we can do the same thing with these things here. Just start going down the side first that's going to receive the most light, and then after that, then you can start working your way back through, just using lighter and lighter strokes, keeping in mind where other things may be that would cause shadow. Like this tree right here, maybe it causes shadow through here, so you don't come all the way down, let that break, let that shadow come through there. And then I can see this one is really close to the light source, so there should be more contrast on that tree. I may have to add some more paint to my palette, but I want to try and do a similar thing to this. Yep. Just mixing it on my palette, draw through one direction. Until you have a nice little dog ear, see the one side's loaded, so the brush is, then you use that side up and push against the canvas. And just let those bristles create that texture. Let your brush be angled at the direction that you want the tree trunk or the branches to go. You notice how I'm turning my brush as I come down the tree, so I'll spin it. And your bristles will create all this extra little detail. Remember to get wider at the base as you come down. Trees need something to stand on, something that's going to hold up their majesty. And I think we're going to have to do that one. I think we're going to have to do that one as well. It just looks, it's just going to look out of place, I think, if we don't. We can also go and add some of that dark color up here. And I'm just writing right into the canvas. Just smash my bristles and just let them splay and let the branches just form and the leaves, old brown leaves will fall that are still clinging to the tree. Just let them happen. On top of the other layers of stuff that we've got there. Just let it happen. Want that dark in there. It doesn't really matter how it gets there. It just needs dark in there. Pull it through your paint. Make that dog ear. Push it on the canvas. Super simple. You can do this. It's all about technique. It's just practice it. Just practice it. If we want that tree trunk there to come through, we can just leave it like that. I think I'm going to take this all the way down. We'll just take this all the way down. Maybe most of the way down. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's as far as we go. Always a little bit of variance going on here, and that's some grasses just come up there. Just remember, try to keep it darker as you get to the edges of your painting. You want to be able to draw the eye in. I'm using a rigger brush. It's that long brush with the pointy bristles. It holds a lot of paint. Some people call it a liner brush. I'm using it. I'm going to go back over some of these trees here and just spin it and turn it. Adding some shadow and interest to some of these foreground trees here. Adding a little bit of contrast to the background. We changed the value on some of these things, so we want to make sure that we get in here and edit those, make sure that they look appropriate. We want to add some highlights to those. Yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, titanium white. Just get a nice, see how broken up the ends of my bristles are. and just give them a touch right down that side. Start at the top and work your way down. As you get down closer to the ground, it's going to get darker and darker and darker. And then go back up to the second section, or to the next step over, with a little bit lighter touch. Add some more highlights, and then the same for as you step your way around your tree. Just keep getting lighter and lighter, and let that highlight just fall off. You do not want it evenly lit. That was one of my complaints that I had with Bob Ross's paintings. His stuff always seemed to be very evenly lit, and it's not at all what you want. I mean, there's a certain amount to be said for bounced light and overcast days and all that kinds of stuff. But I mean, for the most part, you've got a light source, and that light source dictates the direction of the highlight and the position of the highlights. Just go lighter and lighter as you come around. Let it get darker and darker. I think that makes a big difference for what we had before. Sorry, my canvas is my easel's being a little noisy today. So if I did anything else to this painting once it was dry, it might be to add like a layer of yellow white right back here to that tree line, just to soften it just a little bit. I can do that right now too, just to show you. I'm using a smaller brush just so that I can have a little bit more control. Well, it's that same Artist Loft brush I was using earlier, natural bristle brush. I prefer the bigger brush on the tree line. I think that the trees get a little bit more of an organic look to them. In some of this area, I'm just going to use my palette knife for some of the snow. Just trowel it on. Just take that white and just put it on. Some of this, and I'll show you how to blend that in with that same feathering stroke. But what this is doing, it's we're flattening out the ground that some of this vegetation may be sitting on. Same as you might as if you were working with water. And then you take your brush, and with that same stroke, you just put it on and flick up. You do need to wipe your brush when you're working with white like this though, because if you pick up the other paint and you go back into the white to flick up, then you're going to be flicking up the color that you picked up. I think that looks a lot better. And those trees in the background that are lighter, that just means that they're pushed back a little bit more. Still see some of that detail that we originally put in, these darker ones that come forward, and that's good. Okay. I think I'm going to leave this one alone for now. Sometimes things don't go as we might like. We can run into obstacles, lose our vision. The important thing to remember is to stick with it and don't give up. Sometimes we have to give it time to grow, evolve. We started with a study, a plan, and that plan didn't go exactly as intended. The takeaway from this is to remember that the plan is a guide, an inspiration, and it's okay to let your work evolve. Don't prevent yourself from creating something awesome. You can find inspiration anywhere. Don't be afraid to look. So like this video, subscribe to this channel, and check out my other videos. I'll see you next time.